Hello, welcome to When the Smoke Clears. I am the Recovery Plug. What's happening, everybody? Hope you guys are doing great today. I know my day's going just perfect. What we're going to do today in the video podcast is we're going to go ahead and jump back into the series that I was doing, and it was reading the book, The Cosmic Power Within You, which is this book right here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get back into that. I think we last left off in chapter 12, was the last chapter that we read, and I'm going to continue reading on in this book, and we're going to read chapter 13 and see what what kind of message that chapter 13 has for us. You know what I mean? Maybe today's message is for you. Maybe chapter 13 is your chapter. You know what I mean? So check this out. But before we get started, if you'd please, you know how we always do it, join me in a moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer for the addict who still suffers, and for those of us who are still bound down to that struggle and those obstacles that keep us bound down in everyday toxic life that we live in. So yeah, if you would please join me in a moment of silence. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference. Alrighty, man. Well, check this out. What we're going to do is get started on the reading, and then afterwards we'll summarize a little bit, and then I'll give a little input on what I think the chapter is all about and how I put that in and how I compare that to my own personal journey, if I relate to any of it and that sort of thing. And then hopefully this helps. You know what I mean? Hopefully this helps somebody. You know what I mean? Because that's the ultimate thing is that we're doing here, and what we're trying to do it anyway is to spread a message and to help whoever needs help in whatever adversity that you guys might be going through. So at any rate, I guess we're going to get started. But before we do, we got to switch these with these. Yes, sir. Okay, here we go. And chapter 13 is titled, How to Be Joyous Conquering Obstacles to Your Cosmic Good. And it starts out by saying, the principle of growth is cosmic and universal. You may see this marvelous principle of growth manifesting itself daily in flowers, in all vegetation, in animals, and in human beings. The seed of a tree has known to overcome all obstacles, even to break through rocks. In order to become a tree, it goes on to say, in like manner, you are here to overcome, to rise over all obstacles, and to transcend, to grow, and to rejoice in your growth. You are here to master all problems, to solve all difficulties, and to experience your joy, happiness, and victorious living. You are here to become mentally and spiritually aware of your transcendental powers, which enable you to overcome any challenge and experience the joy, satisfaction, and thrill of victory. That's a very powerful paragraph right there, man. Let's stop for just a second and go back over that real quick. Check this out. It says, you are here to become mentally, spiritually aware of your transcendental powers, which enable you to overcome any challenge and experience the joy, satisfaction, and thrill of victory. Man, that is very powerful and so true. Okay, here we go. We'll go on to say, the minute you acknowledge the cosmic power within you and accept your responsibility for your environmental conditions, you will begin to gain control over conditions, and your thinking will begin to make itself felt. It would be very dull and insipid and an insipid life for you if the crossword puzzle were all made out of, let me read that over. Okay, it says, it would be very dull and insipid in an insipid life for you if the crossword puzzle were all made out for you and all you had to do was insert X, Y, and Z. No, the joy is in solving the crossword puzzle. This is the way you discover the divinity within which shapes your destiny. Goes on to say how Cosmic Mind helped sell real estate. It's a story. And it goes, some months ago, I interviewed a man who had a great difficulty in selling his property and home. As he said, because of tight money and high interest rates on bank loans. During the interview, I said to him, there is an age-old truth which says, what are you seeking is seeking you. The mere fact that you want to sell your property and home indicates that somewhere there is someone who wants to buy it. I then said to him, let us both pray about the matter and agree mentally that it is sold to the right buyer who wants the property, who appreciates it, and who prospers in it. Accordingly, both of us stilled our minds, relaxed mentally and physically, and focused our attention on the sale of the home. I said audibly, let us now agree that the cosmic mind knows where the right buyer is, and that the infinite intelligence within that mind knows where the buyer is. And it is now, this moment in action, bringing both you together. Both of us decree that the price is right, the time is right, and the buyer is right. We agree that the property and the home are now sold in the cosmic mind of God, as buying and selling represents an exchange of ideas in the mind of man. We decree that it is so, and we accept it completely in our minds right now. This was our prayer, to which agreed completely. The sequel to this prayer is very interesting. When he went to sleep that night in a dream, he saw a man who gave him a check for the full value of the property. In his dream, he said to the man, are you paying in full for the whole thing? And the man said, yes. Then he awakened and intuitively knew that his property was sold. 10 days elapsed, and on the 10th day, the man whom he had seen in a dream came to him and bought the property, which consisted of 10 acres and a home. The man paid him exactly the amount he asked for, which also coincided with his dream. The cosmic mind knew where the buyer was and revealed the answer to him in a dream, which was subsequently confirmed. The ways of our deeper mind are past finding out. The Bible says, I, the Lord, your subconscious mind or the law, will make myself known in a vision and will speak unto man in a dream. Numbers 12:6. Next story goes on to say how a businesswoman triumphed over obstacles. A businesswoman with whom I talked complained that her health, business, and home conditions were very bad and practically beyond her control. I explained to her that on the contrary, she must definitely and positively assume responsibility for her well-being, happiness, and all the conditions of her life. In her conversation, she said, the first 2 years in business, I was a great success. Everything went fine and I prospered. Now, everything is upside down. I asked her a simple question, do you take responsibility for the 2 years of success? She said, of course I do. I worked hard and diligently, and I gave my best to the customers. I said, your answer is correct. But you just can't take credit and approbation for the success in business, which you said was due to your efforts and mental acumen, and then refuse to assume responsibility for failure in health and discordant home conditions. This is a contradiction which is illogical, unreasonable, and unscientific. She immediately perceived the wisdom of this explanation. Suddenly, she began to realize that she had the privilege to use the cosmic power to live a successful, happy, and prosperous life. And it was her responsibility to use the power rightly, not only for success and prosperity, but also for her well-being and joyous living. This woman had been deceived and swindled in a real estate deal that consequently was extremely resentful and bitter. This mood of lack and hostility lurked in her subconscious mind, and it became festering psychic wood, which brought on her depression, nervousness, and financial distress. She accepted the challenge of life and forgave the man who had swindled her, who incidentally had absconded with her money and gone off to South America. Her simple prayer was, I bless him, I forgive him, and I forgive myself, and I mean to forget it. And it worked. She had discovered the cosmic power which enabled her to overcome her resentment and her ills. The cosmic power responded according to her conviction and belief. The daily prayer I gave her was as follows. It goes like this. As I think wisely, judiciously, constructively, and harmoniously, I shall not reap a crop of confusion, lack, sickness, or misery. I steadfastly think of increase in my business, of joyous, good health, and of vitality, abundance, and expansion along all lines. I know that these seeds fall on good ground, my receptive mind, and they yield an abundant harvest. I constantly sow seeds of forgiveness, release, and goodwill to all, and I know the cosmic power responds by delivering to me better conditions, larger experiences, and better situations. I maintain harmony and peace of mind. It goes on to say, she nourished these thoughts daily. At the end of 3 weeks, there were a renewal and an expansion along all lines. Her business began to prosper. New friends came into her life. She had buoyant health, and she became cheerful and optimistic. This woman had discovered the joy of living, of overcoming, and of a buoyancy and resiliency caused by the flow of cosmic power through her. The next story goes on to say, the answer that saved the suicide. Last year, the manager of a downtown hotel phoned me, and in a rather excited tone of voice, he said, there is a guest at the hotel who wants to commit suicide. He won't get out of bed. He won't eat, and he mumbles to the bellboys, I'm going to kill myself. Call Dr. Murphy. I visited the man and said to him, you can't solve a problem by killing yourself or jumping out of the window. You can solve your problem right where you are, because you personally are greater than any problem. I did not plead with him. Instead, I taught him something about himself, because from experience, I have learned that often the explanation is the cure. I did not plead with him. He goes, I pointed out to him that the act of trying to escape a problem is like running away from Los Angeles to San Francisco. You take your mind with you, and the only place your problem exists is in your mind. I also dwelt on the fact that the man is not just his body, but that man can actually move outside his body. He can look upon his body from outside and also can be seen at a distance by others. I mentioned that these truths about man have been known for thousands of years, that there is no death, only life, that the body is an instrument to express mind and spirit, and that he will have bodies continuously to infinity. I described the experiments and research work of the famous Dr. Hornell Hart, former associate of Dr. J.B. Hine at Duke University, who has investigated numerous cases of men and their experiences outside their body. I told him frankly that he would meet the same problems outside the body he now had as he attenuated and called the fourth dimensional body. He would remain confused, frustrated, and perplexed in his new body, which would conform to his confused thoughts and imagery. This man became intensely interested and absorbed in my description of experiments in Indiana and in the United States. In India and in the United States on a living outside the body, he asked several questions and finally began to see that what he really wanted was a solution. His suicidal complex was caused by an intense desire for freedom and peace of mind. His urge was to commit suicide. It was a sincere desire for a greater expression of life. He soon realized through that he could not really destroy life, mind, or spirit. I explained to him that man is mind, and evermore he takes the tool of thought, and choosing what he wills brings forth 1,000 joys or 1,000 ills. This man's death desire was a desire for a greater measure of life, for there is no actual extinction of life. The suicidal urge in this man, as I further explained to him, was a desire to destroy and demolish the obstacle or impediment, or in the cause of acute mental pain and anguish the body. The so-called insoluble problem which he had was not uncommon. His wife had deserted him, had run off with another man. Where she went, he didn't know. They had a joint bank account, and she took all the money, stocks and bonds included. His store was burned to the ground, and his insurance had lapsed. Then he turned to drink, sank into the throes of despair and despondency, and wanted to end it all. He finally decided, however, to stand up to his problem like a man, realizing that he was born to win, to conquer, and to triumph over all obstacles. I took him out to dinner, and I talked to him about men who had lost everything and yet who had triumphed over disaster. He took a new lease of life, and his constant prayer was like this. He goes on to say, the prayer was, I can do all things through the cosmic power which strengthen me. God loves me, fills my mind and heart, and God reveals to me the answer and the life abundant. The next day he went to work on a chemical plant and vowed to himself, I will rise to overcome through the power of God. And he did. He obtained a divorce, and he eventually married an immensely wealthy woman. They are deeply in love with each other. All his losses were wiped out overnight. As a wedding gift, she bought him a new store with all the necessary equipment. He said to me, your explanation of man living outside his body has saved my life. This man's interrealization of the cosmic power, which is the very life of him, enabled him to see that he is immortal. This is why the Bible says, this is life eternal, to know thee, the one true God. John 17:3. The next story goes on to say how we found a way out of the wilderness in Vietnam. I recently lectured at a banquet, and a young officer who had recently returned from Vietnam sat next to me. He told me that he had to bail out of his plane as it caught fire, and he found himself in the jungle. Darkness was just setting in, and he was hopelessly lost. He said that he was seized with panic for a few minutes. Then he said to himself, the night is here and the dawn follows the night. I am going to find resting place and sleep and know that the Lord is my shepherd. He remarked, when I did that, all fear went away and I knew I would be safe. The Air Force officer had assumed himself that the darkness breaks into flame and light. Fear was the darkness, and faith in God, who had taken care of him, was the flame of light. The next morning, he was rescued by friendly Vietnamese farmers who had come his way hunting for game. This man had overcome his fear, and the cosmic power had responded to his prayers of faith. According to your faith is it done unto you. Matthew 9:29. The next story goes on to say how an executive overcame pressure and excess tension. Some time ago in San Francisco, where I gave a series of lectures on your infinite power to be rich, I interviewed a businessman at the St. Francis Hotel where I was staying. During the conversation, he said to me, I am very worried and terribly tense. The pressure is terrific. It's a rat race today. I'm losing my grip and giving way under it. Goes on to say, I asked him this question. Do you think that fear, pressure, anxiety, and worry are independent of your mind, or are they entities that walk about ready to attack you and give you nervous prostration? He replied, no. I know that disease, fear, and worry are not independent of my mind. I don't suppose you ever read the Bible, do you? I asked. Indeed I do, he said boldly. I read passages every night before I retire. Well, I said, I'm going to give you one of the most wonderful and beautiful healing passages in the entire Bible from the book of Job. Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace, thereby good shall come unto thee. I continued, I know that you read the Bible, but obviously your mind is engrossed in the pressure and the strains of your business difficulties. Now you must deflect your mind from the problems and vexations of the day and acquaint yourself with the cosmic power within you, which is universal and which is the power that created all things in the universe. As you recognize and accept this supreme power and wisdom and begin to call on it, it will answer you and give you victory and triumph over all your anxieties and perplexities. Don't give power to the vexation, troubles, and trials of the day. Never give them power over you. Rise above them. You can go to the cosmic power within you and gather more strength and be replenished with wisdom, which will enable you to withstand the tribulations and contentions of the day and experience some good in all problems. Furthermore, you will grow tall in confidence and poise. From now on, keep your mind on God's wisdom and power. You will have peace of mind and will be more effective in all phases of activities. Practice the repetition 1,000 times a day if necessary. Of this passage, acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace. Thereby good shall come unto thee. Get your mind away from the troubles and focus your attention on the cosmic healing power within you. He thanked me and said, I'll try your spiritual medicine. A month passed by. I received a telephone call from him in which he said that he had used the passage from Job over and over again. He said that every time he was about to fly off the handle, instead of fretting, fussing, fuming, or fumigating, he affirmed the passage from Job. Now he has peace of mind and control over his emotions, and he is no longer victimized by the strain of pressure. Man, and that is chapter 13 of the Cosmic Power Within You. And you know what? It is man, that's a really, really good chapter. And you know, it to me, what I gather from that chapter is, you know, it goes all back to the same things that we talk about here on this podcast, and it's all about doing things here first, mental thought processes. You know what I mean? How amazing is that? That if you want to do anything or attain anything or whatever it is, whether it's healing, whether it's moving past an obstacle, whether it's, you know, kicking an addiction, whether it's dealing with anger, emotional things, all we got to do is start here. And it talks about, you know, a lot of those stories talked about sitting in silence for a little while, taking time of this cosmic and spiritual, you know, thing that we have that can help us. You know what I mean? You know, in the Christian faith and quite a few others, it says that if you ask your God for something and you believe it wholeheartedly in your mind and in your heart and your soul, and you practice those things on the daily basis of repetitiveness, things come into fruition. You know what I mean? And because when you do that, that's called sowing seeds. You know what I mean? It's just like it talked about the very first chapter in that book of that story. It's like it says you see it in the flowers, in the trees, and when you sow those seeds, man, like it said, those roots get sowed so deep and they can just go through a rock. Imagine that. How powerful is that? That just a root that moves so slow but so hard with this power that it has, that it can penetrate a rock and go all the way through it. How does that happen? I'll tell you how it happens. It only happens by the cosmic power within you, the cosmic power that comes from our universe, of our divine humanity and divinity, man. You know what I mean? If you, and I'm not going to sit here and try and give you this whole scientific theory about it, or theologian theory about it. What I do here on my channel is I give you the interpretations of the things that I read like that through my own experiences, and that they work. How they work, I don't know. I don't know the spiritual and scientific behind the scenes, if you will, of those types of things. All I do know is that they work, because that's what we do. As me personally, in the stories that I hear of other people have gone through adversities and kicked addictions and kicked sicknesses and that sort of thing, of the people that I go to these peer support groups and these NA meetings and these AA meetings and just listening to people's encouraging podcasts and all of these stories of things that happen to people, and they happen because they ask, because they stop and meditate, they stop and come into one with their cosmic powers and their energies with the divinity, man, and get this force field around them, if you will, for a little while, so that they don't let in this toxic stuff that we live through when they're doing that little thing. You know what I mean? Because when I meditate, man, and I pray and I do my thing, I got this bubble around me, that everything else that's around me, everything else that I think of, everything's gone. And I just try to focus in on the problems and the things that I'm trying to deal with. Because usually, like it said in that somebody's story there, that sitting in silence and understanding what it is that is happening is usually where the answer is. The answer to how to get out of this adversity is usually in that adversity. You know what I mean? I can guarantee you, it's like 99.9% of the time, the answer in the problems that you're going through is in those problems. You just have to sit down and dissect it and figure out where you fall into that place. Because ultimately, when you figure that out, it's you who needs to figure out what you're going to let in your subconscious mind, in turn there, let these actions come into fruition to help you, overcome an obstacle, to overcome an addiction, to overcome adversity. And, along the way, when you're asking this to your God, to your universe, you're chanting these things out. And when you do that, it's a boomerang effect. You know what I mean? When you're chanting spiritual and positive things out into the universe, well, then guess what? Those are the kind of things that are going to come back to you. And how they come back to you, how soon and how much, all depends on how much you do. Because if you're just doing it one time, and it goes out in the universe just once, it's going to be a long time, you know what I mean? Because who knows how long it takes for that to come back. But when you keep chanting these things out on the daily basis, like he said, sometimes you got to do it 1,000 times if you need to. You know what I mean? It goes back to, like I mentioned in a few other videos, you know, when you have a dirty pail of water and it's got this mud in there and it's just nasty, and then you start pouring water in that, you start pouring clear water in there, well, you know what? Eventually, that pail of dirty water is going to get clear because you kept pouring this clean and, you know, clean and water that you're going to be able to drink someday. And that's going to give you this, you know, nutrients, if you will. It's going to give you what your body needs. And it's the same concept. If you keep pouring spiritual and positive things into your mental thought process, man, eventually you're going to start doing those things. You know what I mean? If you want something good out of your life, you're going to have to do things on a repetitive basis to attain that. If you want to be a good baseball player, then you're going to have to practice a hell of a lot to become that good. If you want to learn how to play guitar, then you're going to have to practice at playing guitar. You know what I mean? You don't even have to read music to play it. You just have to practice. And how you practice is going to determine on how the progression of your life goes. It's going to determine the progression of whatever it is that you're trying to do. Is going to determine when that comes into fruition. And I can guarantee you this, man, if you practice long enough and hard enough, it happens and it comes. And then when it comes, it's going to come like a roaring river, man. And I know that to be true because, you know, I always put my own personal experiences in those scenarios. You know what I mean? And I know that it could happen. You know what I mean? Because I know that I was bound down to addiction for a long time, and had I not decided to start putting spiritual and positive things into my mental thought process and changing the way I was thinking, which was just negative, dark, and fearful, then when I started switching negative, dark, and fearful for positive, spiritual types of thought processes, and then my transformation of life started changing. And it changed, you know, and it changed within months. Within months, I was, you know, I had kicked an addiction. You know what I mean? And I'm continuing to do that. It's something that you got to continue to do. It's not something that you just do one time and you're fixed or you're healed or you're good. Okay, it doesn't happen like that. Just like that story that we read where that lady said that she had dedicated, you know, through her hard work, blood, sweat, and tears into this business for 2 years, she prospered. And then ran into one obstacle, and then she stopped doing that. She started feeling resentful and hateful towards somebody, and then that's the thought process that she had. In turn there, her business started being exactly what she was thinking. You know what I mean? And until she changed that mental thought process, her business revamped and kept, you know, got back up to where it was and even better. Because you got to keep pouring in clear water into that dirty bucket of water, and eventually it gets crystal clear, my brothers and sisters, and you will be able to take a drink out of that and share it with whoever needs to share it with. You know what I mean? And that's the way we do stories here, is by sharing stories of things and experiences that have helped and that are known to be true. You know what I mean? Somebody's already done it. So why not adapt that into your own personal life? You don't have to go through all the struggles that I've been through. You know what I mean? When I can tell you what the answer is to get out of a situation. You don't have to go through all those heartaches and adversities that I did, because I've already done it for you. You know what I mean? And I'm letting you know now, it all starts here. Mental thought process, positive spiritual. You know what I mean? But anyway, that was chapter 13. And I hope that somebody was able to resonate with that chapter today. Maybe, you know, something, you know, clicked for you today. Hopefully today was your day. And if not, stay tuned for tomorrow, man. And hopefully tomorrow's message will be for you. And, but check this out. What I wanted to also tell you guys is that I'm going to start this new thing on my channel, which I'm going to do a segment. And I'm thinking about doing it every Wednesday. Every Wednesday segment from here on out is going to be a Spanish segment. How about that? So for those of you out there who speak Spanish, or who know somebody who only speaks Spanish and needs to hear an encouraging message, share the channel, my friends, and let them know that we're going to be doing a segment in Spanish on Wednesday. It's going to be Spanish Wednesday segments, man, on the Recovery Plug. How about that? It's going to be great. And I just hope that I can tune up my Spanish pretty good, because, man, I don't speak Spanish a whole lot, but in my daily life. But nonetheless, I can speak Spanish, so hopefully it's good enough Spanish. You know, and for me, being from Texas, it's Tex-Mex Spanish, so hopefully you guys will be able to understand the message of what I'm trying to get out there. And but yeah, so, you know, Wednesdays is going to be Spanish segmentation day. You know what I mean? So I'm excited about it. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to have to like practice the actual segment, because usually I don't practice anything. You know, when I decide that I'm going to do the video, I just pick the subject that I do it, and this is just off the top of the dome. You know what I mean? Just like I do my cooking off the top of the dome, but usually it turns out pretty good, and according to my daughter. But anyway, so Wednesdays is going to be Spanish, the Spanish segment on Wednesdays, and I'm still. I think I mentioned this like early in my early videos when I first started, that I wanted to incorporate a comical segment in my on my channel, just to give a different flavor of things, but in a comical way. You know what I mean? Because laughter's always great, man. And but I don't want to spoil it, so I'm just gonna let you guys know that besides the Spanish segment, there's going to be a comical one coming soon, and hopefully it works out, man. Hope you guys enjoy it too. But at any rate, again, thank you for watching, man. Please hit that subscribe button. Just know that when you do, it doesn't cost you a thing, and that you'll be helping out another veteran, another homeless person, another person dealing with PTSDs, childhood traumatic experiences, drug addiction, alcoholism, suicidal thoughts, depression, anger, sadness, because I, my friends, have dealt with all of those things at one point in time in my life, and I know a way out. So just, you know, share the channel, and the more that we share, the more that we can bring, you know, more people to this side of recovery, positivity, and spirituality, man. So I guess until the next time, when the smoke clears, I am the Recovery Plug.